Hey everyone, welcome back to the Boston Greeks podcast. I am Ari. I am here with my co-host Foti, and today we have a very special episode. So just to give you a little bit before I turn it over to Foti, there are certain aspects of the Greek American culture that are very important to us. So we kind of wanted to hit upon some of these aspects, and I'm going to turn it over to Foti now, and he'll introduce our guest, who is one of the finest young men that I've ever met. And I've met a lot of fine young men, but this is one of the coolest, a dear friend of ours. You guys have seen him before, but let me turn it over to Foti. Foti, take it home for us.
All right, thank you so much for those wonderful introductions. I wish you were at my house every day so that I can wake up to this.
I can come in your house and introduce you when you come home.
Oh man, it would make the day so much better. But to your point, our guest, who's also a dear friend, colleague, so anything you can imagine, because we've been around long enough in our community to actually pave the road to where we are today. So, long story short, being in the event business for so many years and creating events to bring us together, we also, as time went on, wanted to do the right thing by getting a job, starting a family, and then getting married, right? So this individual that we're going to bring on tonight has been part of our journey from events, curating networks, and also now being part of the next phase in all of our lives, because obviously one of the biggest things that we grew up as, whether you're Greek American or American or whatever culture you come from, is that ultimately you find somebody, you fall in love, and you want to get married, right? So we're here to discuss the fact that we're able to bring a very super talented individual who basically, in my opinion, puts together the utmost amazing experience for those situations. And with us is Dimitri Soteropoulos, who is also one of my neighbors. I don't know if I can say that on air. We're not going to disclose the address, but
I'll post it in the notes.
Right. Dimitri, thank you so much, for being with us.
Of course.
This is very important to us because, we think about this, who is in our network and what we're doing, and what you provide, in my opinion, is one of the most important aspects of kicking off our journey in life. And you make that happen for people at their weddings, right?
Right.
And he does. And you know what else is cool? We've seen him evolve, which is like the coolest thing.
Exactly.
Like, we've seen him like as a young kind of little young punk kind of doing his thing, but we got to know him. We saw his talent. We saw him kind of get into this whole professional DJ thing. Then we saw him go into this wedding thing, and now he's literally, and any Google search could back this statement up, he's literally one of the most in-demand wedding DJs out there. And right. You know what, Dimitri, why don't you just start off, just tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into DJing before we get into the more detailed wedding stuff.
Sure. And I appreciate that introduction. I think you guys blew up my head for a moment there, but I think coming back down to earth.
Yeah, no, you're a talented dude, and like I said, I said this in a previous podcast, but I hired him for my kid's baptism. Right, I wouldn't do that if I didn't believe 100% that he was the best man for the job.
No, I appreciate that, guys. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the kind words. And I think to kick things off, most guys who want to begin DJing, and again, maybe I'm speaking for the guys who I've worked with or the guys who I know, I think a main driver is more like the nightlife scene. And this is where I met most of you guys, right? This is where I met Adi, this is where I thought we did plenty of nights together over the years. And I believe as a younger guy, that was my goal. I wanted to be in the clubs. I wanted to be in the bars. I wanted to play weekly events and focus very much on the music, focus very much on just making people dancing, having a good time. And I think that part of my life, that's really what I wanted to do. Now, fast forward, like that was great. I think we did a lot of fun events, both
absolutely.
Greek and international and American, whatever it might be. We did a lot of cool events, but I think as time progressed, like I was less and less interested in the scene, in that scene in
And it's a
particular.
natural progression. It's like you get a little bit
It is.
older, you get
Yeah,
serious with a significant other, you get married, you have kids, like
of
that. Just
course.
it's a natural way. So you basically were doing what you should be doing. You don't want to be at this
Right.
point in the club scene doing DJing all the time.
Exactly. And for some guys, that's what they still want to do, and that's their goals. And there's nothing against that. Because I think there's certain guys who that's all they care about, and that's really their end goal as a DJ. Whereas I sort of was scaling back out of that, and I focused more now on the private event space, where along this course of like doing the clubs, I was still doing like the baptisms, like the sweet 16s. And as I was going and growing, I was doing a lot of these smaller events and kind of learning that aspect of the business and tagging along with some of the other DJs that you guys had in our previous podcast.
Yeah.
But over the past, I would say now like 7 or 8 years, I've only focused on weddings. Like weddings has been my bread and butter of what I do. And I tend to not really take many other parties aside from weddings, and really try to focus on those and perfect those and try to provide experiences for people that maybe you can't get elsewhere. And over the course of the past few years, things have really kind of ramped up. And, a portion of what I do is Greek American or all Greek or not Greek at all.
Yeah.
And I try to be
that's the
very
cool thing.
versatile. Yeah.
It's really cool that like I see so many people talk about you, Greek people, non-Greek people. It's just whoever's looking for a good event has very good things to say about you. And I am a past client of yours, so I could speak honestly about it. And you were 100%. And weddings are so stressful. Like if I thought of myself having to deal with people planning weddings, I don't know if I could do it. Like you have to have like a pretty good
Yeah,
level, confident head to get through that, right?
I agree. I think, you're so upon like booking a client or having a someone source you to be their guy or to be their DJ, to provide entertainment, they're putting a huge amount of trust in you, a huge amount of trust that you're going to provide and you're going to exceed expectations on their day, which is such a special day. I say this like time and time again, there's literally no room for error. Like you cannot go there and just wing it and risk messing up such an important day.
Yeah.
I would say if you go into a club, you don't want to mess that up, but you're also not ruining someone's memory that they're going to remember for the rest of their life. You're going to ruin that memory until they go out next week.
Yeah.
Whereas in the wedding, there's a lot at stake here. So, I always try to pose myself as someone who I've got my clients like under my wings, and I'm going to make sure that I provide that service at that level that I would expect.
Right.
So yeah, to answer your question, it doesn't really stress me out. Maybe because I've done so many, or maybe because the approach I have is to be overly organized and overly prepared for these events, such that like nothing can happen, nothing bad, at least in my terms. Yeah.
That's a great thing. That's a great thing. And that's a great thing for people looking to book any service, especially a DJ. It's good for them to know this. Like this guy is cool, collected, super organized, and like you don't have to worry about it. That's how I was with our event. That's how I'm sure many of your clients are. And from what I've read, it sounds exactly the case.
Yeah, and I hope so. I hope that's the impression that kind of is given off from previous clients or from new clients coming in, where it's not just like I'm going to come there and play music and that's it. Like it's far from that, right? There's way more to it for your day.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
So okay, so is there anything that you have noticed different from when you first started out being event and wedding DJ to today? Is it just you evolving, or did you see anything change within the scene? I mean, so many things changed with COVID, obviously. I don't know if you've
Sure.
actually done, have you done any events during COVID, or has it been like weird? Like what was that experience?
Yeah. So through the the uh, the part of COVID where we had very high restrictions in this area,
Yeah.
I did maybe 5 or 6 weddings when I was supposed to do maybe 50 or so.
God, wow.
Those ones were just scaled back in terms of number of people and maybe venue location and a couple things to try to make the event safe for everybody.
Yeah.
Luckily, as we've progressed onward, things have hit a bit more of a norm where, I don't know, the way I see it is when people are out there, they're still just having fun, they're dancing, everyone's having a good time and not necessarily thinking like about COVID, which I'm
Yeah.
I'm very happy about because it makes my job easier where people
Yeah.
aren't as like worried.
Exactly. And if they're having a good time and the music is good and they're dancing and you know it and they could forget the whole
Exactly.
pandemic type of thing, it's more power to you to be able to get them to forget these things. But how about you personally? Were you okay when you were doing these like 4 or 5 events during the tightest lockdown, or were you
You
like
know,
were you locked into it, or could you have backed out of it?
um, with so contractually how things worked out through COVID was very loose, only because like none of this was any of my clients' fault.
Yeah.
So we were obviously very lenient in like not forcing people or forcing them whatever, not pushing them in any direction. The ones that I did, obviously, we tried to maintain our distance. And as a DJ, you really do. You're not really by
Yeah.
the masses of the people. We masked up. I think most of it was more like making sure and ensuring, like I use multiple mics, that like I cleaned the microphone that people were using and I was using my own the whole night. So those are like some precautions, but overall, I don't think there was anything else really out of the ordinary that we were trying to do or that we really could do.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean that's good. That's good because whatever the situation calls for, you basically took control of it and made it a pleasant experience for your clients. And that's what else can you ask for from somebody you're hiring for such a important thing?
right.
So let's go. So aside from COVID, because we kind of covered that, and I don't want to
Sure.
harp too long about
Yeah.
something like that, but when you first started getting into the wedding DJing, have you seen any major differences between now and then?
Yeah, I mean, I think like overall there are trends in the industry and trends might be stylistic where,
Mhm.
things we might look at 5 years ago and be like, why would we have decided to either wear that or look like that or
Yeah.
decorate such a way? So that's one way. And then I think ultimately, I think people are putting a lot of I appreciate this. I think a lot of people are putting a lot of research into who they hire for vendors. So a lot of the clients that I work with are talking to multiple people, are really doing Zooms like this to
Mhm.
interview the person rather than just call a hotline and like book a guy without ever speaking to them.
Okay.
I think that that level of research is helpful because they want to know who the person is who's going to be at their event. So you need to have a presence online. You need to have reviews. And I think this all didn't exist maybe in the beginning of this, where social media was a little less apparent or maybe not as
Oh, that's a
much.
good point. That's a good point. I didn't
Um,
think of it.
where you kind of only knew if the person was good based on a review that you maybe heard from a family member, or hey, I heard this guy was good, and that's still great, but I think people want more concrete evidence that like you are doing what you are, and part of that is making sure that your presence online reflects that.
So in essence, it's it could be looked at as it's a little more difficult because you're so much more in that like spotlight of people trying to find out who you are and trying to see what you've done, because now they could find so much more than they ever could before, so you always have to be on top of your game because you never
I,
know what somebody's going to see.
That's true. I think there's two ways to look at it. One would be if you have nothing out there, then it's suspect. It's suspect for a
Mhm.
client who's now searching for you to say, hey, there's nothing about this person out there. what's going on. Like I should see something about them, or there's some people who maybe share too much, or things that aren't relevant to this system, to what they're doing. So I think you need to find a nice balance of promoting yourself in such a way where it's true and it's actually you, and then also showing that you're an actual person as well. Like I'm not just a DJ. Like I have another job, I have a career, I have a family, I have more, there's more to me than that.
I mean, you like, you could be an amazing DJ, but you nowadays, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you have to have, like, you know, marketing talent. You have to have a demeanor that's nice and pleasant for people. You have to be professional. Like, where back in the day, maybe some of that stuff could get lost from lack of like knowledge on the client side. But like now they can see everything. So you just gotta be, you gotta be the best guy, the best person you can be, not just the best DJ.
Right. I agree with that completely. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's, I didn't really think about it before this conversation, but I mean, it's, you could look at it as like, there's pressure on people in the, like your profession, but like any sort of like vendor that caters to like weddings or important events. I mean, nowadays you kind of have to be like, just like a good, everything you do has to be a presentation, because
right.
If you're like a DJ who is standing on top of your DJ table screaming with a tie on his head, I mean, that's cool if it was my wedding, because I would like that. But it's like, who sees this and what do they think? So you have to be like just on top of it.
That can easily maybe shy a customer away from you. And I think too, just there's a very large pool of people too. So once, you know, DJing turned a little bit more digital and we were able to play off our computer maybe like 10 years ago, because before we were like CDs, and prior to that it was records. You could buy a computer and you can be a DJ. So this, I think, added to the sheer volume of amount of people who are now can say, I'm a DJ, I do weddings, I do parties, I do this, because I own a computer with a program. So the vast number of people means there's a huge pool of DJs and a lot more people to choose from. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing per se, but like, I just think it's another reason as to why you should really do your research on who you're getting.
That's a good point.
Yeah, because there's a lot of guys out there who might not have the experience level that you're expecting. That's all.
That's a very good point, because I guess a lot of people could call themselves DJs that shouldn't technically be called DJs, but they have the equipment, they have a whole bunch of MP3s, and they're like, yeah, I could play music, but it's so much more than that.
And that's okay though, because I'm always like, I'm a believer as well as like, I'm not in this as a volume guy. Like I'm not trying to sit and like book every single event or every other lead that comes my way and just do an insane amount of weddings per year. I do believe that there's a certain DJ for every client out there. So there's plenty of people who've come to me and I'm not the right fit for you. And I'm okay with saying that. I'm okay with losing an event because I don't feel like I'm your guy. Or we're not like on the same like wavelength, or like there might be a better fit for you.
And that's respectable as you, a DJ, telling people like, listen, I know who I am as a DJ and I know what you're looking for, and I don't think it's a good fit. Like that, that to me shows even a better, I don't know what the word, like mentality or like,
whatever it's just trying to be true. Like, I don't want to pose myself as someone I'm not, and I'm not willing to necessarily change myself to mend to a party that I don't feel like I'll do a good job with. So it's kind of like better for me to.
I just the thought of what you're saying, I just can't imagine you not being that person for the party.
It's hey man, I promise
people?
You. So all right, I'll give you a prime example if this makes sense. So like, there have been clients who've reached out to me who really have maybe wanted to either dictate the exact playlist as to what will be played at their wedding, or they wanted someone who might want to like play games. Like, I want to guy will do like musical chairs or something.
No,
And then like,
God, no.
so like you think about it though, and like I'm not bashing, because there's guys out there who will do that.
And
So there's a guy for you. The thing is, it's just not me.
Yeah.
So
then
I will not take an event like that because I can't do that. I won't do it. Like I'd
Dimitri,
rather just not do it.
just give them Ari's number.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Right. Right. Exactly.
I got a
Or-
computer. I got some MP3s.
yeah, or the first portion of that where I talked about the music, like it's very clients who come to me who have like an entire curated list of what they want to hear that night, like song for song. I'm very reluctant to do an event for, because at that point you've done the work. I'm just an iPod from that point forward.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So
It's like,
I can't use my like artistic ability to work your crowd and curate the event how it should. It's more like forceful to play exactly what you want in your order. That's not for me.
I mean, that makes sense, because you have a DJ who has a skill set, and it's like you utilize the skill set for your event. Like,
Sure.
And plus these types of people sound like what's the word, like bridezillas. Like maybe you don't want to deal with them so much.
Yeah, maybe not. There's it's okay. Like people get stressed out on that day, and part of my job and what I try to do is minimize that. And by minimizing it, it's plan accordingly, be there, be present, make sure that we have everything organized and ready to go. And I want my clients to have fun that day. I don't want them to think about the planning. I want to do that for you. And that way you go, you have a good time. We've done all the work in advance. And that's kind of how I see my events, or I kind of try to roll my events out.
Nice.
And it's been working. So
So correct me if I'm wrong. Like a big part of DJing is you kind of feel the crowd. You feed off the crowd.
Right.
And a wedding would be the same kind of thing, right?
yeah, so I think that's a question a lot of people have too, where like when I enter a wedding, or before I enter a wedding, I don't have an idea of like what I'm playing in that order. So it's very much as if you were in a club where you're kind of like vibing and feeling the crowd in which direction you want to go musically. So the same thing as for a wedding. It's just a different setting, but it's the same thing. It's a group of people you want to get to dance.
So if you explain this to one of the types of clients that wants to play like song exactly in their order, like can't they see that like part of the DJ's job is like to kind of feel that crowd and kind of feel that vibe and kind of play off of that? You can't necessarily do that with such a rigid. And so now everything you say about types of clients you probably won't take on like makes perfect sense when you think of it in those terms.
Right. And I think like there's nothing like, I get why maybe those people have done a lot of thought, put a lot of thought behind what they think is going to work.
Mhm.
But what you think is going to work isn't what always actually works, because the response of the crowd is something that's unknown until you actually get into that moment. So it's very hard to predict what's going to work without actually being there.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm hesitant to take on that type of an event, because what if what they gave me doesn't work?
Exactly.
Then it's like nobody knows. It kind of looks bad that nobody's dancing, but I need to follow or adhere to this list.
It reflects poorly on you, and it's not you doing it. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and there's not that many people like that, but I think upon explanation of something like this, it kind of clears the air a bit for most people. But if somebody's hard set on it, then yeah, there's no harm done.
Gotcha.
To just not do it.
Interesting. So tell us what do you see? So you do non-Greek weddings, you do Greek weddings.
Right.
Do you see any major differences, you as a DJ or just as a professional booking these types of events? Is there a big difference anymore than there used to be?
No, yeah. So I would say like, it's hard. So I'm only going to speak from my own experience, because it's tough. If you interview someone else who might do different types of events, they might have a different take on it. But at least for my own, I see it as, I think the majority of the weddings that I do are like the Greek American ones. If we're talking about having a Greek, actually, the majority of weddings I do are not Greek at all.
Yeah.
They're just straight up American wedding, or have any different ethnic aspect to it. But out of the Greek weddings I do, the majority are Greek American. Some are Greek, like full Greek. So I think, at least for my own clientele, I see less and less all Greek weddings as the years go on.
Sure.
Okay,
Which
and
is
I'm not
like
saying
the-
that a bad thing. This is just how it
No,
is.
but
Like,
that's a bigger question. Maybe we'll address another time about
Sure.
the culture and where it's heading. But this is very interesting because the wedding part of this is a major component of our Greek American culture. And
it is.
as you say that, it's like wow, it really is kind of fading out a little bit.
Yeah, and again, so maybe if you ask another guy who might do more of these all Greek, maybe he would say, I still see plenty of them. I'm just speaking in terms of the weddings I've been doing lately. Yes, I think bulk wise will be Greek American of the Greek-ish weddings.
Yeah.
And Dimitri,
Go ahead.
how about in general? Do you see a change in the formats of weddings over time, and what's like maybe trending, or what's like maybe requests that you've seen over the years that are leaning towards different approaches and requests that we might have been used to over the years?
Yeah, so I think over time I see formalities, meaning like cake cuttings and parent dances and certain formalities that historically have been like integral parts of weddings over the years are not phasing out, but we're doing maybe less and less of them periodically. And I think a lot of focus on almost every client I speak to is, I want to come and dance. That's it. Like straight up, we're putting so much money and so much effort into this one day. I want to just have a fun party. And that's, I could say across the board, what most people say.
That makes a lot of sense. That's what it's all about at the end of the day, right? Because I kind of feel, this is just speaking from all the weddings that we've been to over the years, they kind of start very slow and just very like lagging. And then the fun part kicks in until like later into the evening when it's almost done. It's
so
like
you bring up an excellent point, where I think over time, weddings have been very predictable, where you know what's going to happen. And part of my job, I think, is shifting that. Like, what can we do differently for you that's going to make your wedding a bit different than that predictable wedding, where everyone knows that process, everyone knows what's going to happen. So over time, I've been, trying, or like, it's a lot of people watching. It's a lot of iteration of like seeing what works, what doesn't, and to try to make my weddings a little bit different to stand out from the rest. So, I think that's something that I'm going to continue to do. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think that's what people want. They just want to go and have a good time. So that's why the entertainment is so important, because you're kind of holding that. You can make or break it. And I always tell my clients, like, we've all been to a wedding where the DJ, the band, whoever didn't do a good job, but like didn't read the crowd properly, or didn't capture them how they should have. Right. We've all been there, and we've all left being like, oh, what was that? Right. And I never want to be that person, but also we always remember that. That's the problem. We'll remember the weddings that were bad, which isn't a good thing to do. So you don't want your client to have that. You want them to remember to be one of those good ones, right?
Yeah.
So
if it's a really good wedding, then if you had a great time, you don't remember anything.
That's true. You got an Ari blackout night.
Oh yeah.
No, but
I've had many great times if it comes to that.
This is, to me, is important to kind of address, because being to so many events and weddings, to your point, Dimitri, you take the lead, right? You create the flow. Right. And if you don't have a handle on the flow, and you just leave it up to the crowd and to the guests or to the hosts, they don't know what's, they're in their mindset, or their physical or their mental capacity is in just so many different directions. The last thing they're going to do is leave the whole night. So it's in your hands. It's in your hands, right? So if you don't have a handle on that, then to your point, there's a lot of disappointments, because you really have to be actively involved from the moment it starts to the moment it ends.
Yeah,
And
you have to be you have to almost be like a psychologist, like to kind of like just understand the people, understand who's hiring you, understand what they want, understand the crowd, understand all this stuff.
Right.
Right. And I think what a lot of people don't see is a lot that happens like the day of is one thing, but in advance of that, there's quite a bit of effort that we put
Oh my
in
God.
prior to in preparation for these things, whether that's like coming up with like curating their music request lists or like the formal songs or the planning and the timelines. And there's a lot more to it. And the other thing that you kind of hit on, Fluffy, was, you know, a lot's in the DJ's hand and in the DJ's hands in terms of like making sure the flow goes and how the night kind of proceeds on. They also have, and I don't like to say that the DJ is the only important vendor because there's so many other people who are very important aspects of your wedding. You have your photo, you have your video, you have your caterer, you have your planner, you have whatever, right? All these people, but the DJ is that person who's that focal point, making sure that things are running, or they're the ones initiating the things that are going. So an example of that is like, if you're a DJ who doesn't care about anybody but yourself and you only are focused on your job at hand and what's important to you. So let's go ahead and do our parent dances. You grab your mic and you do your parent dances and the photographer was in the bathroom. What do?
Right.
Like, you cannot recreate these moments. So I take it upon myself, and this is very important to me, that whatever wedding I work and whatever day I'm there, that everyone who's on this team is on the team. Like, we're on the same team. I don't care if we work for different companies. I don't care where you come from or who you are. I don't care your experience level. We want to make sure, because we have that same common goal, is to make sure that couple is going to have a smooth and like uneventful, in a bad way, experience. We want them to make everything kind of run smoothly and seamless. So if I now step on the photographer's toes and make that announcement and they lose the picture, it is my fault. That is my fault. So before you do that, you make sure all the parties are in the room, you make sure they're set, you make sure they have their camera set, their flash. So these are things that run through my head day of and how we go, just so that we don't have an event that has any issues.
Do you know that everything you just said just made me realize how many bad DJ experiences I've had in the past because of things that I didn't think about. I'm like, oh, it couldn't have been the DJ's fault. But I remember, like, just for a quick example, like there was a 50th anniversary or something of a couple, and the DJ was supposed to announce them and they were going to do a dance, and they were like outside doing something. The DJ's announcing them, like,
exactly,
dude, like, you have to understand like what you're doing.
Simple,
exactly what you're saying.
It's as simple as just making sure the people are in the room, making sure everything's set before you make the announcement. And part of that for myself is like, that guy who did that, he felt stupid. I promise you, he felt stupid. And I don't want to feel stupid. So I don't do that because I don't want it to come off like this is unorganized, because the guests will all see that, like, oh, you just announced someone and no one's showing up, or like nothing's happening.
This is perfect, because what we're discussing at the moment is to many folks who are in the process of planning. If you really think about it, most folks that are out there, and I'm sure the numbers are high, they're doing all their research, and in my opinion, most folks are just rolling the dice on who they're going to book as vendors. So what we're discussing, what we're discussing at the moment, I hope, that those that are listening and watch this really understand the importance of the actual person that they book has the same mindset that you do. Right?
Yeah.
So this is why we're here together, and this is basically what's needed for those that actually want to spend the time and effort to find somebody that's going to make the difference and the impact in their experience. Because as you said, Dimitri, you can't undo this. Once they're there and things happen,
you have one shot.
You live with it, right? Yeah.
But
one shot.
We've known you, Dimitri, for a long time. We've worked with you in many different capacities. And again, I'll say, like, I've seen you as your professional self now. And I'll tell you the honest truth, that you're the type of person that I felt 100% comfortable with not having to think about what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
a lot of things, like you're like, well, are they gonna be on time? Are they gonna do this? Are they gonna do that?
sure.
You're like the type of person, because of everything I've known about you, that I just was like, he knows what he's doing and he's gonna do an awesome job, and I don't have to think about it twice. And that's what I want in anybody that I
So
hire, and that's what I
your
wanted when I did hire you.
your
Thank
your
you.
your military approach works very well.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, well, like I just don't see maybe other people have different ways to do this, and I would be open to hear
There's
different approaches,
no,
but
there's no
like
other ways. This is the only way.
Yeah,
This
from
is the
a
only
Yeah.
client's
way.
perspective, I would very much go with your style and how you do it, because
Yeah.
anything else just might not be what you're looking for, and you don't want to risk that. So
Yeah,
knowing that you're going to take control, you're going to get to know, you're going to understand the client, you're going to like, and you have your skill set and your artistic expertise. It's the package. That's what
Yeah.
people are looking for.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So
Well,
unfortunately,
before we wrap this up, let's ask. So now COVID is kind of, on its way out. Things
Mhm.
are a little more getting back to normal. Are you gonna are you ramping up? Are you like wintertime? I'm assuming is probably like a kind of downtime, or
So typically, yes, winter is just a suspect time to do a wedding in New England, obviously, just because of weather. But I think because of COVID, so this past summer has been or this past season has been basically flat out every weekend, multiple weddings. I'm
Okay.
slowing down a bit now, but it ramps up again. Like even this weekend, I have two more. So
Oh, wow.
I think what we've noticed with COVID is because of the mass push of weddings to 2 years worth of weddings into 1 year, that a lot have trickled into that off season here. So
Gotcha.
through March and January and February, I still have quite a few, which normally you would have maybe a handful. But yeah, it's definitely full swing. Like things are busy again.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So give us your website, give us some of your social handles. Where can people find you if they want to talk to you, if they want to ask you anything?
Sure. So yeah, if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at DJ Dimitri SOT. I think you can maybe just drop it in the description or whatever.
I will.
I try to keep as current as possible in terms of weddings I'm doing and keeping up to date in my stories and showing people the different experiences that others are having when they book me. So yeah, feel free to give me a follow. And if you're having a wedding, I'd like to talk to people. I think one of the most important things is, and maybe this comes off a bit in the reviews, is like, I do not pressure anyone to book with me. That's one of the things that is important, that I think as a DJ or as any vendor, like, don't ever pressure a client to have to book you. So it's let's have a discussion. If it feels right, I'm cool. If it doesn't, that's cool too.
And
I'll help you find another guy. Like,
that
it's
would
okay.
make me book you even more, because I appreciate that. It's like there's a sort of emotional maturity about you and how you do business that I 100% appreciate, and I think a lot of people out there do too, and probably a lot of your past clients have noticed it.
Thank you.
So yeah,
Thank
keep
you.
doing what you're doing, man.
Thank you, guys.
I'm gonna put all your information in the notes. But if you want to mention your website too.
Yeah, it's www.djdimitrisot.com.
So
And
Dimitri
again,
Sot, S-O-T is like
SOT.
a big
Yeah,
thing.
it's just a cut of my last name because it's too long, obviously.
Yeah.
Love it.
This was
we're
awesome.
we're not all as blessed as Foti, okay?
Me,
Right?
what
Like
about Ari?
with
What
what's
about
that?
Ari?
Ari Kalos.
Yeah, Kalos is what I go by. Like he goes
Yeah,
by
but
Sot.
that's short for yeah.
We can't all have
Fine.
famous cousins like you, Stamos.
Fine.
Well, this was great.
Yeah, thank you guys.
No, thank
Dimitri,
you.
we say it all the time. We talk to you in many different situations. We know that our audience, as a Greek American audience, really cares about the industry that you're in as far as DJing and weddings, and you're the perfect guy to talk about it. I said it 1,000 times, I'm not just saying it because I know him and he's a friend, but I actually had him as my DJ, and it was one of the best experiences because, again, I didn't have to think twice about it. I didn't worry about it. I didn't stress about it.
Well,
I knew that everybody was going to love it. I knew the music was going to be good. I knew it was going to be professional. The whole 9 yards. He's a good guy. He's a good DJ. He is, one of our friends, and we love him for it. And we appreciate everybody out there watching and listening. We'll have all Dimitri's information and all the notes and the podcast and the videos. And thank you so much, Dimitri, once again.
Thank you,
you guys,
Dimitri.
man. Of
Forte,
course,
thank
guys.
you. And
Thank you.
yeah, we will see you guys next time. Have a great night.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.